Welcome to Washington in Focus Daily. It is Friday, August 14th, 2026. I'm Carlene Johnson, the Center Square, Washington's state government reporter. And in today's episode, the head of the Seattle Police Officers Guild, the union president, Kent Loux, has reaction to the recall that was filed this week against Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson. Not really surprised, he says, that it's been filed. He's not sure it's going to get very far, but we'll have that reaction as well as reaction to the recall from Andrea Suarez of We Heart Seattle. They've been trying to get the mayor to pay attention to drug related crime and other public safety issues for many months. So we'll have that reaction as well to the recall. And then also, Guild President Kent Loux shared with me some of his thoughts about a story we have covered extensively in episodes of Washington in Focus this week. And that is the report that came out from Washington Policy Center, very sharply critical of the LEAD program, the law enforcement assisted diversion program, that basically when somebody's arrested for a drug crime, instead of pushing them through the criminal justice system, we put them into diversion programs. LEAD says it's been successful for the last decade plus. This analysis from WPC shows otherwise. So we'll get the Guild reaction on that. Then we're just 81 days away from the November 3rd election. Can't believe I'm already talking about November. But Let's Go Washington's initiative to restore parental rights, which is IL 26 001, is getting some national attention from a parental rights in education group. And I caught up with their executive director for an interview yesterday, and we'll share that in today's episode. And we'll conclude with a quick update on where the challenge is with the Public Investment Impact Disclosure Statement, the PIID, that will accompany the initiative that seeks to repeal the new income tax in the state of Washington. Last Friday, this time, we had a judge in Thurston County who rejected the attempt to get that language amended or thrown out entirely. But that appeal is going to the state Supreme Court. That's the citizen Arthur West challenge to the PIID. We're going to share the update. I just got some breaking information just before this podcast, and so we'll share that with you in today's episode in conclusion. All right, let's jump in. We've got a lot to cover here. A North Seattle couple has filed the paperwork, did so this week, to recall Mayor Katie Wilson, alleging that she has failed in her duty to protect the people of the city. This was filed by Melinda Jacobson and her husband, and they filed what's called a recall charge with King County Elections. That was filed on Tuesday. And this has to be reviewed by the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. If they think that there's maybe something to it, they then advance it to a judge before a determination as to whether or not they can begin the recall effort. And then that would be going out and gathering some 70,000 Seattle voter signatures who say, yeah, we think the mayor's failed in her duties and committed, malfeasance, misfeasance, and we want to remove her from office. So a lot of this centers around the mayor's response after the Bite of Seattle shooting, and the delayed press conference. And then she insisted upon the resignation of Police Chief Shawn Barnes. A lot of people were unhappy about how all of that transpired. And now the fact that she hasn't been very publicly available to say, yeah, we screwed up, or this is, here's my justification for why I did what I did. Instead, she's got a report moving forward that's going to be sometime in late September before we get really any answers from the office. So I went to Seattle Police Guild President Kent Loux for his thoughts on the recall. He has not had a great working relationship thus far with the mayor in her first 8 months in office. So I wanted to get his take on the recall.
I don't know that I'm surprised, quite honestly. I think that this was probably coming. At this point, I think it's more of a statement than anything else. Obviously recalls have significant challenges. I don't think we take a stance on it either way. I think right now this is the people right? Speaking, obviously broadcasting that there's some significant issues. I don't think that's any or shouldn't be any surprise to the mayor's office. I think right now SPOG stands ready and willing to assist the mayor's office as it relates to public safety. And if she wants to sit down and involve us in more conversations, I welcome that. I think that the mayor's office at this point, like I said, is a high bar for a recall. I think this is more of a wake-up call for the mayor's office to take public safety very, very seriously. I think going back to previous conversations, she should really reconsider cameras involving SPOG and the police department in some of these decisions. Again, I think that this really serves as kind of a wake-up call and maybe a change of course for their office.
Now, Andrea Suarez, founder of We Heart Seattle, has also been very critical of the mayor when it comes to the open air drug markets in downtown Seattle, the related crime. Of course, We Heart Seattle is the group that's out there on the ground, you know, trying to help the drug addicted population and the homeless population, which is one and the same, um, into treatment programs and into programs that are not low barrier, no barrier, so that it isn't, we're going to give you housing, we're going to give you clean needles and clean foil. We're going to actually require you to be on the path to get out of substance abuse and be on the path to self sufficiency. So she's been very critical of the mayor because the mayor has not embraced her approach to it when literally they're the ones who've cleaned up tons of these drug infested encampments that are a blight all over the city and on the sidewalks. So here is Andrea Suarez's reaction to the recall charge against the mayor.
I'm not surprised. There's been a lot of rumors that this was going to happen. And with the gaffes and the lack of leadership and lack of transparency and a motivated couple, here we go. I had an opportunity to be on the seventh floor for one of the press conferences, and none of the council member were flanked behind her when she appointed sales. And, that's a big deal. It was very, very obvious that they're sending a message that they're not supporting her decision to have asked Barnes to resign, I guess, is probably the crux of it all. And just lack of, leadership, timing, use of good judgment. I have my own personal speculations, but we'll see how this unfolds.
All right, now moving on, we've spent some time this week in previous episodes of Washington in Focus Daily talking about that Washington Policy Center report authored by Eric Zimmerman, who did a deep dive into the LEAD program and their claims of success, that they don't have a great number of folks who have committed drug related crimes. Um, and are diverted out of criminal justice to their programs to basically say, all right, we're going to give you a case manager and you're going to get on a path, to kind of maybe not use drugs anymore, but maybe not. We're going to give you a house or at least shelter, a taxpayer expense, and lots of other taxpayer funded pieces to kind of get that person out of the life of crime that is related to their addiction. But LEAD has provided supposed evidence and numbers since their inception some 11 years ish ago. And WPC really broke that down and did a deep dive into their numbers and even got LEAD to admit this week. And we shared that with you that, oh, we were kind of misrepresenting some of our numbers so far as success goes. This is something that Seattle Police Guild President Kent Loux has been talking about for quite some time. They have a real problem with LEAD because the police officers encounter somebody who's committed a drug crime, right, on the streets. And then instead of seeing that person forced into the criminal justice system and held to account for whatever crime they've committed related to their addiction, they are handed off to LEAD. And then this person often ends up just repeating the cycle over and over again. So I asked SPOG President Kent Loux for his reaction about Washington Policy Center's report.
So the whole point of law enforcement being the first interaction is that typically there is some sort of a crime, right? And I understand people's um, disagreement with that, right? That we're criminalizing it. Well, it is a crime, right? It is on the books. The problem with some sort of diversion program interacting before us is that you have nothing held over them to say, complete this program, do this work. So now we're just asking for volunteers, right? So there's no carrot and stick. So to remove that, what leverage do you have over that person? And I get it. I understand people don't want some kind of a leverage, and that maybe sounds mean or whatever. But the reality is that a lot of these people are so consumed by the drug that, as you said, they can't make this decision on their own. At some point, we have to, as a society, I think, intervene. I'd be fine with a program that was developed to um, maybe have people serve some sort of sentence, but with real treatment attached. I think that would be compassionate. But the problem is that we have a problem dealing with and really kind of locking away real dealers anyway. So we don't believe in incarcerating the users. We don't seem to believe in incarcerating the dealers. So now we leave the most vulnerable out among those that prey on them. And how's that compassionate? We are dealing with, the analogy I've kind of used in the past personally. It's like somebody has a problem with weight, and it's just you're forcing them to work in a bakery. It just doesn't work. I mean, you're subjecting themselves to an area and kind of pushing them to an environment that they're destined to fail.
Now, I remind you, this all has great significance and national implications because Seattle and King County's lead model has been replicated in more than 20 other states and local jurisdictions as well, but even on the state level, as a model for, okay, let's not criminalize drug related crime. These people are addicts, and let's do kind of a soft handoff to a case manager and not hold them accountable to crimes. And in many cases, as evidenced by this report, that's only perpetuating the problem and is costing taxpayers a lot of money. And you see it in your communities, not just in Seattle, but all across the state. I'll remind you that as of last year, that was the most recent year I could find statistics for, but it's at a cost of nearly $11,000 a year per participant in this program. So we're spending millions of dollars every year. So pressure may be coming in short order because of this on the city council, which recently embraced an expansion of LEAD despite Andrea Suarez and others pleading with them not to do so. My guess is pressure is going to be coming in the weeks and months to come on the council and on King County as well to maybe pull back a little bit and maybe conduct an audit or figure out what else we can do here. Just 81 days from now, we will be voting on many state elected positions. We've got the initiatives, all the Supreme Court positions, 5 of them on the Washington state ballot. And Let's Go Washington's initiative to restore parental rights is now getting some national attention from a group called Parents' Rights in Education. Worth a little recap here for how all this went down. I'll be brief here, but voters, you may recall, you might have been one who sent a parental bill of rights to the legislature after Let's Go Washington got hundreds of thousands of signatures. So lawmakers adopted that in 2024, saying, that's obviously the will of the people. We're going to adopt this into law. And that happened in 2024. But then they came back a year later and passed House Bill 1296, which once again made it so schools can keep secrets from parents. This was Representative Sean Scott, Democrat for Seattle, arguing in support of the bill on the House floor April 24th of 2025.
I'm rising in support of this bill because our job, your and my job, I believe, in this institution is not just to affirm rights, but also to ensure that those rights are applied equitably across race, across language, across income, and across ability. And that is for all parents and for all legal guardians. For families from marginalized backgrounds, Black, Indigenous, immigrant, or undocumented folks, there have been a recent initiative raised very serious concerns because of vague language. So without clarity, which is a lot of what this bill provides, Madam Speaker, you and I risk weaponizing, I believe, parental rights in a way that can exclude a lot of different families and people from different walks of life. This is a bill that aims to create very clear understanding. It protects parental and legal guardian involvement in student education. It's a bill that aligns with civil rights laws. It honors the diversity of families. So that is why I'm rising in support of this bill, and would hope that we're able to see a solution for real families across our state in this way.
So after 1296 was passed by majority Democrats and no Republicans, Let's Go Washington went back out again and gathered hundreds of thousands of signatures for yet another initiative to restore parental rights. But this year, in the 2026 session, majority Democrats refused to hold hearings on the initiative and another one that would protect girls in sports, even though it is their constitutional duty under Washington state law. If an initiative comes to them from the people to the legislature, they're supposed to at least hold public hearings. They refused to do so, instead punted that to the November ballot. So that's where we're at right now. Now, Suzanne Gallagher is the executive director for the Parents' Rights in Education group. And she attended an event last weekend in Thurston County when Let's Go Washington basically held their campaign kickoff for the 3 initiatives that will be on the ballot in November: parental rights, protecting girls in sports, and the initiative that aims to repeal the newly adopted income tax. So I followed up with Suzanne Gallagher this week to ask more about why they're paying attention to what's happening here in Washington and why this issue, which is happening all across the country, apparently, with children, and schools keeping secrets from parents, why it's so important to their organization.
This is so important that our families understand it's not new. Other people are talking to your child, and they literally are not only coaching them in the transition possibility, but they're letting them know that this is happening at school. We can keep it secret from your parents until you're ready to make the announcement. And when you go home, you just act like normal. Your parents will never know. But at school, you'll be one person who you believe you really are. And your parents will have no idea. In fact, school staff is cautioned if this child is, if in her record it shows that she is transitioning, she or he, at school, and parents don't know, that they are to use the child's name, their old name, and their old pronouns when they're speaking to the parent. They go that far. The word that comes to my mind is cult. And I've thought that for a long time, but it's being used more and more by commentators and those people who really are into this issue. It's very cult-like, where we're keeping everything from the parent, and that is gigantic when it comes to parental rights, because the law, federal law, and Supreme Court rulings support parental rights and their right to know, their right to be notified, their right to have access to records. All of those things are part of parental rights. So guys, the law is behind you. What these people are doing is unconstitutional.
So again, you will see Initiative 001 on the fall ballot, as well as the initiative to protect girls in sports and I-645 to potentially repeal the newly passed income tax. Those are all going to be on your ballot, and you're going to start to see a lot of pushback from the no side on all 3 of these initiatives. So we're going to continue to be watching all of that closely. And finally, a quick update on the fight over the public investment impact disclosure statement. I have to slow down every time I say that because it's a mouthful. The PIID, which is a statement that will go alongside the income tax repeal. There's been a court fight over that because Let's Go Washington and others fighting it, including the state Republican Party, say that the impact statement that says, oh, don't support this, it's going to cut all this funding for education, higher education, healthcare. They say that's a bold-faced lie because, in fact, there's a very tiny fraction, only 5% of the legislation for the income tax that dedicates it to certain funding. Otherwise, lawmakers can use that money for anything they want. And it's already, I should say, it's not already in place because it's not until taxes for millionaires for what they make in 2028 that will show up in 2029 profits for the state coffers. So how they argue, opponents of the way the PIID is written, that you can't say you're cutting something that isn't even there yet. So there is some amicus briefs that have been filed in support of this appeal, which is now going to be in expedited fashion before the state Supreme Court, Arthur West case. Let's Go Washington didn't get their case heard. Arthur West, citizen who filed a challenge to the PIID, his case is going to be heard before the state Supreme Court. And Attorney Joel Ard today sent me a copy of the Washington GOP amicus brief in support of the appeal. So I want to put this up and show you in part what that says. It says that whether the public investment impact disclosure the AG's office proposes for Initiative 645, which tells voters the measure would decrease funding for public K-12 education, higher education, and human services, is false, and whether any PIID should replace it. While GOP's brief addresses two grounds, the income tax scheme in Senate Bill 6346 generates no receipts to the state until 2029. So repealing it does not repeal a tax. And the state's own financial reports show that spending in each named category rose in every year from 2017 through 2025, and in every completed biennium of the last 4 budget cycles. And I also just learned that former Supreme Court Justice Richard Sanders is also submitting an amicus brief in support of the appeal, in support of Arthur West's case. So that's pretty significant. The court has agreed to accept his amicus brief. And really what that is saying, we believe in this argument. We believe in this case. And Richard Sanders, being a former sitting justice, that's a pretty significant voice weighing in with an amicus brief. So this is all likely to be decided sometime next week. It's being expedited by the state Supreme Court, and we're following it very closely. So that's it for today's episode of Washington in Focus Daily. We covered a lot. Thanks for sticking with us, and thanks for watching on a Friday. We hope to see you again on Monday. Have a great weekend.